Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here with my good friend, Karen Wierzba. She is a soprano, originally from Canada, now based in France. And Karen and I went to school together at U of T back in the 90s. And it's a pleasure to talk to her today about the world we've been living in these past many months here with the COVID pandemic, and specifically what it's been like to be a musician through this whole situation. So first of all, thank you so much for being here with me today, Karen.
It's a pleasure for me. Thank you. Thank you.
So
I wouldn't be here if it weren't for your compositions and your music, because when I saw this project going on, I immediately wanted to jump on board and do some.
Well, your two performances, the two videos you supplied are just absolutely amazing and very touching, and just absolutely blew me away. So we'll definitely get into that and talk about that. But for everybody watching here, what the cool thing is that this is the first time that Karen and I have seen each other face to face or talked to each other face to face, probably since 1997. So when we graduated from the University of Toronto. So it's very exciting. We've been doing a lot of chatting over the years and emailing and chats and stuff, but this is so cool. So thank you, technology, for allowing these things to happen. So what has life been like for you personally? What has life been like for you professionally since the COVID pandemic began?
If you don't mind, I'm actually going to start with a few details of what happened right before the pandemic. So I was actually in Mississauga and Toronto literally 2 weeks before the pandemic sort of really broke out, in the sense where we went on like lockdown, I guess you call it, from like the 14th of March, something like that, 14th or 15th, 16th, something in that area. And couple of weeks beforehand, my dad passed away. So this was absolutely, devastating. And I'll sort of go backwards in time, if that's okay. I'll probably stick around a whole different venue. I'm not very good at being linear.
No,
so I'll do my best. I'll do my best to be understood. When I've had a job at Radio France singing in the choir, in the symphony choir, which is a very professional gig. It's sort of like we're orchestra players, except that I'm in a big professional choir. I say it like that because this sort of thing doesn't really exist in Canada. A big professional choir and a radio choir, it's been a long time since, I think there was a time where there were some professional singers at the radio who were working, but it's long gone. So when I heard about this job opening, it was in 2008, I think, and that's it. And I auditioned for this, and already my dad sort of reminded me how incredibly, not eerie, but sort of spectacular this idea was, that I was going to try for a fixed job, what do you call this? CDI, fixed job, a long-term job.
Steady job.
Steady income.
Permanent.
Steady. Yeah. It's not that steady, but it is. The income is steady, but the job itself is kind of erratic. But I'll get into that in a second. So when I auditioned, I was sort of like, oh my, I can't believe I'm going away from my solo career, and what's this going to mean, and who am I going to become? And I had been used to being sort of unstable, but really focusing 100% on solo singing. And if it meant solo singing 1 month with on a production, on opera production, or having a few gigs, earning good income, having a few gigs with a symphony, and then touring around, and I mean, after having been at the Paris Opera, now that I'm in France, I guess I can say also, see, I'm not linear. The Paris Opera was my first couple of years here few years here, I had quite a few gigs with them and took part in their academy. And so that sort of promoted a solo career and all the rest. And I did some competitions and won some things. And to sort of, as soon as I had children, that sort of changed a lot of the momentum. Not only because my opera directors who were regularly hiring me sort of said, "Are you serious about a career, or what are you doing?" But also because it's very difficult to, as my colleagues will attest to, my solo singing colleagues will attest to, it's extremely difficult to leave your kids at home for months and months on productions, and that just wasn't doable with my ex-husband, my family. So at some, 10 years later, I sort of decided I've got to gain stability somehow. And so I went for this job. And while I was going to this job, my father, I'll get around to the story. My father finally reminded me that my mother's father was a professional musician in the Danish entertainment radio orchestra. And that when the war broke out, when the Second World War broke out, his boss sort of warned all of the Jewish members of I'm Canadian Jewish, Reform Jew. My grandfather was warned that the Nazis were coming and was told by his boss, take your 5 kids, take your wife, and get your butt over to the border. And so they went to they went to the water's edge in Copenhagen. This is the where they were told to go. And my mother was 3 months at the time. And so they got into a fishing boat. And just before, there's these amazing stories. I want to make a film of this actually, eventually. But my father reminded me of this story that were it not for my grandfather's job, stable job at the radio, this was probably my father was someone who really enjoyed motivating us to think positive thoughts. All his 3 kids, everyone around him. So he said, "This is an amazing thing that you're getting this job," because I was really pretty down on losing my solo career or losing my solo hat. Also because I enjoy singing solo. So anyway, I also didn't know how much I'd enjoy singing in a choir. So anyway, my grandfather took his kids and took his wife, and just as they were getting in the boat, a woman came and said, "You cannot take this 3-month-old baby. She's going to scream and cry." This is my mother. "She's going to scream and cry. It's going to give away everything. You can't do this. It's too dangerous. Give me the child who's crying, or take this sleeping pill. I'll adopt the kid, or take this sleeping pill." And I guess they gave her what she needed to be quiet. And then they all got in the boat and made into the fish part of the fishing boat and made it over to Sweden. And some of my grandmother's relatives were already there, and I think they managed to find peace. Basically, some of them got jobs. My mother's older siblings got some jobs. Some of them, they all, it was a very small unit that they lived in, and it was hardship for a couple of years. And when my grandfather and his family came back, so he was the clarinetist in the orchestra, and I think he still did some playing while he was away in Sweden. And when they came back, the neighbors had kept his house intact. He got all of his pay from his job, and he was back at work immediately. And having gone through the idea of even what that means as a stable job, right? What stability brings you. Here we are, 2020, entering in a time that's obviously politically things are pretty rough on the arts. We can always say things are pretty rough on the arts, but right now things are really rough on the arts, especially, during this pandemic. For us, it's sort of after, because things are starting very slowly to sort of turn around, and people are starting to schedule gigs and hire and stuff, and auditions are kind of going on, and there's still much distancing and we're careful and all the rest, but things are just starting to sort of get back on track. Not on track, but somewhere. And really immediately my thoughts went to my grandfather. I thought, how is it possible that he went through this unbelievably atrocious situation and came back and got his work, got his job, got the pleasure of playing, got the honor of playing, and intact, you know? How blessed he was, and how blessed I am to have this job that, even if in the beginning I was sort of breaking my back about it and saying, oh, this isn't really what I want, and if I had been able to elect something to do something else, you know, as a soloist, I would have done it, you know, and lugged my kids along, but it just wasn't possible. Now, so that's my mentality about the pandemic, is how blessed I am. How blessed I am to have my dad, who passed away, but who I was able to be there almost up until the very, very last moment. He died 30 hours after I left, and I ended up coming right back 3 days later to Toronto. And how blessed I was to be able to go to his funeral and share time with my family. And, you know, two weeks later, that we were all on lockdown, where I wasn't able to sing a note anyway, because I was in mourning and just had absolutely no desire to use my voice. And yours was the first music that inspired me to sing again. So thank you. Sorry. It really was.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, when you posted that on social media, talking about that, I bawled, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. I felt honored, you know. I felt honored that something. It's one of those time and places in life, you know. You're in the, you know, you're just we cross these digital paths, and we can help or touch each other and connect with each other in special ways through distance and music and stuff. That's sort of an amazing thing. So
also, just to tell you, my father was really most of my inspiration of there's a word in French that's mélomane. It's someone who is an extreme music aficionado, someone who, my father and I would play games while he would take me to school in the car, or drop me off at the metro, and when I was going to university or whatever, he would turn on the radio and he'd say, who's this composer, and when was this written, and what are we listening to, and what was going on at the time, and we would play this game. And he knew everything. It was really a crazy thing to be with a dad who had a memory like an elephant, who really, I mean, up until his last moment, he remembered his phone numbers from when he was a child. He was, you know, almost 80 years old. So
was he a musician? Was he a musician himself?
I mean, he was a mélomane. He wasn't the best, most efficient pianist. He had a beautiful voice, but it was a fairly untrained voice. But he loved music so much. He tolerated my awful practicing. He would sit and have his nap while I was practicing. And I think I needed someone to listen to me. I think we all need someone to listen to us. It validates what we do. And you know, my father and I didn't have much of a very, you know, passionately close, deep relationship to each other through anything else than music. We always managed to connect on that level because he understood what I was trying to say. And so when he was gone, I was working. I just finished a project with Ligeti and Birtwhistle at the radio, where I was singing these solo pieces, which take you to stratosphere, crazy places, high in the voice, and pianissimo, and trying to do these sort of very technically adept, but people aren't always touched by that stuff. And we forget that, I mean, moved by that stuff. We forget that with contemporary music, it's very difficult. I think you face a lot of, I imagine you face a lot of challenges when you write something that seems a bit pop-like, or seems a bit banal, or seems a bit simple, or, and it's not at all. This is the piece that you wrote at that, you know, that I stumbled upon at that precise moment was not only the text, but just the simplicity of it was exactly where I was at that point in time, able to do with my voice. My voice broke. My voice broke when my dad died. I couldn't sing without crying. I mean, my voice didn't break, but I couldn't, my person broke. The idea of losing him, I guess, was just, who was I going to sing for? So I just didn't see any point of going on. And then when I stumbled upon your piece, it was more like a discovery that of course he's still there. Of course he's still there on the couch listening to me, whether I'm in France or wherever I am. So that in and of itself, it saved me. It saved what I was doing and gave me, you know, sadness, but desire to move on somehow. Move on holding his hand.
That's very beautiful. And wow, I again, just so amazing I can be part of that process in an indirect way. It's amazing. As a composer, I'm always very moved in my experience over the years of collaborating and working and having various people play my music, about how after a while they start to have their own personal connection to the music. And what I find fascinating about it is even with audiences too sometimes, and it's just like at that point it's like I almost have nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? It's just like you have your own personal relationship, and I was there, you know, as a part of it, but I let that piece go out in the world, and now you make your way in the world, and you have relationships with other people, and that's sort of neat, you know, that I had a hand in it. But yeah, I really enjoy hearing that, Karen. Thank you for sharing that. So you had this wonderful, beautiful relationship with your father that was very much based around your mutual love of music.
Oh yes.
And now, based on, you know, our interactions and seeing social media posts, it's quite evident that you are passing this now on to your family, and your daughter is quite an accomplished singer, and that was one of the other pieces in the Music for Self-Isolation project that you performed a duet with your daughter. So talk to me about your relationship with your daughter, and specifically how that relates to music. Oh, and also, if you don't mind, how has it been to be with your kids during this time period? You know, so if you don't mind touching on any of that, whatever you feel like.
Okay. Yeah. Well. To go on with this sort of story, I'm bringing us back to the past again. Lise is named after the Holocaust warbler. It's kind of, yeah, it's a bit weird when these sort of things happen. It's magic that we can't possibly put a name on besides magic, when you name someone, just giving an honor to. In Judaism, we give a baby naming. We give it the name of someone that we really admire or appreciated, or someone who was in the family who touched us somehow. Or no, it's an honor to give that name to your child. And so Lise is named after, in the Warsaw Ghetto, there was someone named the Nightingale who would give performances in a small club while things sort of lasted, and it's a very sad ending, so I won't really talk about that. But she didn't make, obviously, and neither did her parents, and that's disgusting and heartbreaking. But there are known documents of her excellent singing that touched so many people, and I thought, wow, you know, I'm a singer, so why wouldn't I give, you know, my child the honor of this name? And who knew that Lise would turn out to be a better singer than her mama? So she's like I mean, my own brain sort of turns around a subject and then, you know, finally gets to it. And I think I was programmed. My own brain was sort of programmed since I was born to sort of hear harmonies and write harmonies and sing in harmony very early. And she's exactly the same. She picks up on things. She has perfect pitch. She's remarkably Auditory bound. She memorizes things in 3 minutes. She's sort of mind blowing. I look at it and think, wow, okay. My father said, my dad said, gee, it would be criminal if you didn't do something with this, or he reminded me, I thought, when I heard you sing, it would be really bad parenting if I didn't do something about that, and then he shoved me in piano as soon as I was, somewhat ready for the adventure of learning theory and practice. But Lise is now in the maîtrise of Radio France, which is the children's choir. And it's a wonderful, wonderful program for children who desire singing, learning how to sing. It's a professional choir school. So she goes to school, traditional school, from 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning, and then they eat a nice on-site lunch not far from the radio. And they're taken over to the professional high school, where they're integrating sort of music lessons, piano lessons, singing lessons, choir rehearsals twice a week, I think, at least. And they do shows. And believe it or not, they're even paid for their shows. I think she got 14 euros for a little presentation. But I mean, she wasn't sort of like her mama. I really didn't enjoy school when I was a kid. I enjoyed my piano lessons, but again, I didn't enjoy practicing. We were sort of non-traditional learners in that sense. And she really is a non-traditional learner. She'll practice, but if she feels something during her practice, then she learns it a million times faster.
She's an artist.
She's an artist.
Yeah.
So when I said to her, hey, my friend Frank wrote this really sweet piece. She said, oh, right. That's it. It was immediate. It was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And even today, she's been diagnosed with ADHD, and school's been a super challenge for her before she got into this program, because not only because it's just challenging anywhere for her to focus on learning certain things that are totally not interesting for her, but as soon as she gets into a musical setting, she like a sponge, she picks things up immediately, and so that's been amazing.
So you have 2 kids, right?
I have 3.
Oh, you have 3 children, and have they all been at home full time with you and stuff? So how has it been? What are you seeing with your kids as far as how are they coping emotionally with what's going on? And are they coping well? Do you find that certain aspects of life they're struggling with, or?
Well, my father's death wasn't the easiest thing, obviously. And they miss their friends. Lise misses her friends. She misses her colleagues. She had voice lessons and piano lessons pretty much weekly on, internet platform of some kind. But it wasn't. It's not the same thing as when you can hang out with you and listen to really well what's going on around you. I think she totally misses the choir. She's eager to get back to school. We before this meeting, I was at the park with her, and she was doing warm-up exercises in the car. She's like, she's constantly singing. Nathan, my son, who's 14, as long as he could get some physical activity, again, he's very active. So he's into, it's called trottinette here, the scooter. He's really into that. They like listening to music, and they listen to all genres of music. My eldest daughter is 17. She's gonna go into pre-med very shortly, and they have unbelievable coping skills. They cope way better than I do.
Why do you think that is? Why do kids deal with, a lot of times like cataclysmic things better than adults do?
I don't even venture to even have a guess to that. I think my eldest, Alia, she's incredibly socially aware. Like she's pretty much vegan. She really is conscious about what's going on with the climate. She's really involved. I mean, so are we. But for me, I feel a real sense of catastrophe, with where we're going, they're sort of like it's a whole other resilient generation who's sort of resigned to telling us off, our generation, for everything that our parents set us up for, being too comfortable. And my kids are incredibly resilient. I don't know how to explain it. I really don't.
One last question related to the pandemic and just your personal feeling on it. What are you, if we do get back to a certain level of normality, what we're used to in our music world, what are you most looking forward to for yourself musically once life goes back to quote unquote normal?
Harmony, some feeling of peace. It's just, I miss that, it has erupted. This pandemic has erupted on so many levels. The amount of work, the type of work, the way we work, it's so tragic. I'm very incredibly lucky to have my salary job, and on the other hand, I'm not singing so much. And harmony, making harmony between my colleagues and I, making harmony between friends and I, feeling harmonious about my friends, my colleagues from Canada having work and being paid for it. I think I'll feel a lot better when I know that there's a comfort zone that allows people to sort of live more, adequately. Right now, it's just a nightmare. So, yeah.
Well, on that note, that's a good place to stop and hope for sure. So thank you so much for joining me. This has been great.
Real pleasure for me.